In the heart of Saudi Arabia, under a sky of desert lights and global expectation, two heavyweights stood across the ring not just as fighters, but as symbols. Filip Hrgovic, Croatia's undefeated technician, entered with an aura of inevitability surrounding him, like a man who believed destiny had already signed his contract. Across from him stood Daniel Dubois, England's bruising enigma, a fighter once questioned, once broken, but now rebuilt. This wasn't just another fight on a stacked card. This was a crossroads for both careers. One man walking in with his perfect record and long talk of title shots, the other with something deeper in his eyes, unfinished business with the world. The crowd wasn't silent, it was waiting. Analysts spoke of skill versus power, precision versus pressure. But nobody could predict what happens when ambition collides with desperation. Dubois had heard every voice, every criticism, every doubt thrown his way after past setbacks. He didn't carry them as weight. He carried them as fuel. Hrgovic, calm and composed, believed his technique would solve the puzzle. But boxing doesn't always reward the calm. Sometimes it rewards the hungry. And as the referee called them to the center, the tension thickened like fog before a storm. Gloves touched, but there was no friendship in that tap, only a quiet understanding. Tonight, something had to break. A record, a reputation, or a man. The bell hadn't even sounded yet, but energy was already vibrating through the arena. This wasn't just England versus Croatia. This was pride versus pride, future versus future, and survival versus expectation. And somewhere deep inside both fighters, they knew this wouldn't be a polite chess match. It would be a war of will. The first bell rings, and instantly the tension explodes into movement. No slow feeling-out process, no cautious dancing. Dubois steps forward like a man who has a mission with a deadline. He claims the center of the ring, not with words, but with his feet. Hrgovic fires the first sharp right hand, a clean signal that he came to fight, not to pose. Dubois takes it, his head snapping slightly, but he doesn't step back. Instead, he steps closer. That's when the tone changes. Hrgovic expected resistance, not pursuit. The jab of Dubois starts finding space, heavy, stiff, not just a rangefinder, but a weapon. Every time it lands, the crowd reacts. Every time he steps in, Hrgovic has to answer, and he does. Right hands flash again. This becomes a brutal exchange of faiths. Hrgovic's belief in precision versus Dubois' belief in pressure. The punches echo through the arena, like metal crashing into metal. There's no defense-heavy chess here, only forward, momentum and risk. But with every exchange, something subtle shifts. Dubois isn't just absorbing shots, he's calculating them. His footwork takes Hrgovic half steps off rhythm. His guard tightens, his confidence grows. The commentators talk about power, but what's really showing is intent. Dubois fights like a man who refuses to return to the shadows he escaped from. Hrgovic, still sharp, still dangerous, starts to realize that this opponent won't fold. And when a fighter realizes the other man won't break easily, doubt becomes louder than the crowd. You can see it in the eyes, just for a second. Not fear, but awareness. This will not be an easy night. By the middle rounds, the fight stops being theoretical and becomes brutally real. This is where conditioning meets character. Sweat pours, breathing deepens, and reaction times slow by fractions. Fractions that decide careers. Hrgovic is still landing, still showing flashes of that educated right hand, but the cost of every exchange is rising. And then the blood comes. A cut opens, then another. First a streak, then a flow. Blood doesn't just damage skin, it damages vision, focus, and confidence. And Dubois senses it instantly. He doesn't rush foolishly. He increases pressure intelligently. He doubles the jab. He steps into range, closes space, forces exchanges on his terms. Hrgovic starts working more off instinct than planning, his rhythm disrupted by constant forward motion and the physical grind. The crowd no longer debates who's winning. They start asking how long this can last. Dubois' body language is different from before, calmer, more structured, more patient. This isn't wild power, this is controlled violence. Hrgovic, once so smooth, now has to fight through impaired vision, exhaustion, and the realization that Dubois isn't fading. In fact, he's growing stronger. Each round feels like sand pulling on Hrgovic's legs. His movement becomes heavier. Dubois stays upright, balanced, composed. And that's when everyone around the ring starts to understand the truth. This fight is changing a narrative, not just for Dubois, but for how people see his heart. As the fight enters the later rounds, fatigue reveals the truth that muscles try to hide. Hrgovic's jab loses sharpness. His combinations shorten. He still throws, but now they land into a wall of will. Dubois doesn't just walk forward. He walks forward with purpose. Every step cuts off escape. Every punch is placed, not wasted. The cuts on Hrgovic's face have turned him into a man fighting through a storm of his own blood. His eyes struggle. His guard rises. His response time slows. This is where worlds are decided, not in the early fireworks, but in the slow breakdown. Dubois begins sitting heavier on his punches, digging into Hrgovic's exhausted frame. The right hand crashes through again and again. The left hook snaps his head sideways. Yet Hrgovic stays on his feet, not because he's winning anymore, but because pride doesn't let go easily. The referee watches closely. Doctors look uneasy. The atmosphere changes from entertainment to concern. Dubois continues, focused, almost emotionless now. He's not trying to impress, he's trying to finish. And that's the difference between a contender and someone ready for the highest levels. Hrgovic, who once talked of domination, is now surviving round by round. With every bell, his corner tries to inject life back into him. But sometimes, no advice can refill a drained tank. And Dubois? He's accelerating. The end doesn't come with just one punch. It comes with accumulation, with pressure, with the slow breaking of resistance. Dubois steps forward again, unleashing combinations with calculated aggression. Hrgovic tries to answer. He has too much pride not to, but his body doesn't obey like it used to. The right hand from Dubois lands clean, followed by a hook that twists Hrgovic's exhausted frame. The referee moves closer. The doctor watches the cuts. Blood continues to blur vision, and another heavy sequence lands. At this point, it's no longer about toughness. It's about safety. The referee steps in, waves it off. It's over. Daniel Dubois has done what many didn't believe he could: dismantle, outlast, and dominate an undefeated fighter through sheer evolution. The crowd rises, not just for a win, but for a transformation. This isn't the Dubois of yesterday. This is a fighter reborn through defeat, forged through criticism. Meanwhile, Hrgovic stands, not as a villain, but as a warrior who faced his own limits. Records are numbers, but nights like these shape careers, legacies, and futures. And as Dubois raises his hands, it's not just victory he's claiming. It's redemption, growth, and a warning to the rest of the heavyweight division. Because tonight, he didn't just win a fight, he changed the conversation.